Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our today's class is about the rightly guided caliphs, Hazrat Umar Razillah anhu, and his Khilafat, his Caliphate, his major services, expansion of the Islamic Empire, administration, reforms that he has introduced during his rule. Okay, so this is will be our main focus for our today's class, and we know that Abu Bakr Razillah anhu has nominated him as his successor. And in nominating Hazrat Umar as his successor, Abu Bakr had seen beyond his strict and authoritative personality. So when Abu Bakr nominated and suggested that Umar would be his successor, so people were very much apprehensive. Umar was very intelligent. He had very strong willpower and he had a sense of justice. And that is why he has been given the title Farooq. Okay, Farooq means the one who distinguishes between the right and the wrong. And along with that, he had a very much he had a nature of the compassion with the poor and the less fortunate people, underprivileged people. Abu Bakr was fully aware of Hazrat Umar's ability, and he was aware that he would succeed him, and his decision was very significant. Okay, to strengthen the Islam and to strengthen the Islamic Empire, and that is why Abu Bakr has been quoted about Umar Radhiyallahu anhu that his strictness was there because of my softness. Okay, when he appointed him as his successor and people objected that he is very much strict, so Abu Bakr said that his strictness was there because of my softness. When the weight and the burden of the Khilafat will be on his shoulder, he will no longer remain strict. Okay, and he will be very much lenient. And if I will be asked by Allah as to whom I appointed my successor, I will say that I have appointed the best among your men. So, after the death of Abu Bakr Radhiyallahu anhu, Abu Bakr died on 22nd of Jamadi Sani, okay, 13th year of Hijrah. So, Umar Radhiyallahu anhu assumed office as the second caliph, and he earned the title Amirul Mu'mineen. He took the title Amirul Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful. That was about his election. That you can write that if you are asked to write about the election of Umar Radhiyallahu anhu, you have to mention. So Umar Radhiyallahu anhu, after being elected, he continued the expansion of the Islamic Empire that started during the time of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and after the Holy Prophet Umar Abu Bakr Radhiyallahu anhu, he continued with the same. Okay, and so many areas were conquered during his Khilafat. Like Muslim, they conquered major areas of Persia and also some of the parts of the Syria, and the Byzantine Empire has also been conquered. So Umar Radhiyallahu anhu continued with the same, and during his Khilafat, Islamic Empire expanded, and we can divide our answer into several paragraphs. That if the question is about that trace how the Islamic Empire expanded during his rule, so we can divide. So this is actually overall the expansion of the Islamic Empire. Okay, there were Iraqi campaigns which took place towards the Persia, and there were battles which were fought on the Syrian front. Okay, with the Byzantines at the time. So the first battle which was fought against the Persians, it was the Battle of Namarik. Okay, Battle of Namarik was the first battle, and we know that during the rule of Hazrat Abu Bakr Radhiyallahu anhu, Khalid bin Walid and Musanna has conquered so many areas. Okay, and at that time, Abu Bakr Radhiyallahu anhu had ordered Khalid to proceed and march towards Syria. So Musanna was left behind with the half army, because at that time Khalid and Musanna entered Persia with 18,000 men. Okay, but when Abu Bakr commanded Khalid to proceed to Syria, so Khalid Radhiyallahu anhu selected 9,000 of his best men, and he swiftly marched towards Syria. So Musanna was left behind alone. So they wanted to take advantage of that. The Persians wanted to take advantage of the less number of Muslim army. So Umar Radhiyallahu anhu sent reinforcement. Reinforcement was sent, and the reinforcement was sent under the command of Abu Ubaid as-Saqafi. Okay, you must know the name and you have to identify this name in your answer. That was Abu Ubaid as-Saqafi was the new commander, and he has been sent by Hazrat Umar anhu to reinforce the Musanna army. So first, the Battle of Namarik was fought, in which Muslims were victorious. Okay, their famous leader, commander, Jaban. Jaban was a Persian commander, and he was considered the right hand of the Rustam. Okay, some sources mention that he got killed in the Battle of Namarik, and Muslims won this battle. The next important battle, which is the important battle which was fought during the Caliphate of Hazrat Umar anhu, it took place in late 634 AD, and this was led by Abu Ubaidah as-Saqafi. You can write Abu Ubaidah as-Saqafi or Abu Ubaidah as-Saqafi, but you must know that he is not Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah. So he was a tribal leader, and he was accompanied by Musanna Shaybani. Musanna was also there. Musanna was another commander. So he was accompanied by Musanna also, and the Persian forces were around 4,000 in number, and they were under the command of Bahman. Okay, so they were under the command of Bahman, and they gathered on the eastern bank of the river Euphrates. Okay, so the Persian army asked Muslims that whether Muslims they will cross over the river and come to go over to their side, or Persians they will cross the bridge, cross the river, and go to and come to the Muslim side. But against the advice of the senior commander, Abu Ubaidah as-Saqafi decided to cross the river and go to the Persian side. Abu Ubaidah as-Saqafi was advised not to go on the Persian side, but he was overconfident. Okay, and he was, due to his overconfidence, he decided to go to their side, and the battle was fought, in which Muslims they suffered heavy losses. They made a bridge of boats. Muslim army they crossed the river. So the Muslims they built a bridge of boats across the river, and hence this battle came to be known as the Battle of Bridge. And this battle is also known as the Battle of Marwa, because the place where this battle was fought, it was known as Marwa. So however, they were overrun when they crossed to the other side to fight the Persian, and Persians charged with their elephant cavalry, and Muslims were trapped. Okay, and they faced a lot of difficulty. Abu Ubaidah noticed that their cavalry got completely disorganized. He asked his men to dismount and to start fighting on their foot. Okay, he himself led the army, and Abu Ubaidah stepped forward, and he cut the trunk of one of the white elephant which was leading the herd, and in the meanwhile he was knocked down and he got trampled. So Abu Ubaidah achieved martyrdom, and his kinsmen, okay, one after another, they achieved martyrdom, and finally Musanna took the command, and he saved the remaining Muslims by ordering to repair the bridge and return from the battlefield. So Muslims were trapped when the bridge was collapsed, because the bridge has been broken by a man from Banu Saqif tribe. A man from Banu Saqif tribe has broken the bridge with the intention that Muslims will not think to retreat. So Abu Ubaidah was killed along with his kinsmen and many others, but Musanna, he saved the remaining Muslim army by holding the bridge and rebuilding the bridge, and out of 9,000 Muslim army, only 3,000 were saved, 6,000 were lost. Okay, we can mention that 4,000 died, 2,000 fled. Okay, 4,000 died in a way that 2,000 fell fighting in the battlefield, 2,000 approximately drowned in the river in attempt to protect their life, save their life. Okay, and 3,000 reached the camp. So this was the only defeat which Muslims faced against the Persians. So since this battle was fought in the late 634 AD, so next battle was in the beginning of 635. Okay, that was the Battle of Bowaib the following year in 635. So the memory of defeat at Marwa was fresh in the Muslims' mind, but Umar anhu consoled and motivated them and he mobilized another army. Okay, and this time the Muslim army also had the Christian Arabs as well. Musanna although he was grievously wounded, but he was placed in command, and he effectively encouraged and inspired his men. And the battle was fought at Bowaib. This was on the western bank of the river of Euphrates. And this time Muslims, when they were asked whether they will cross the river, So the Muslims, they asked the Persian army to come to their side since they had a better experience of crossing the river and going to the Persian side. So the Persian army was around 12,000 and they were led by Mehran Hamadani, and who was an expert in the Arabian way of fighting. Mehran was expert in the Arabian way of fighting. So battle started, and Mehran got killed by young man of Banu Taghlib tribe. Okay, a young man of Banu Taghlib tribe killed him, and after the death of Mehran, the Persian army started to retreat, and his troops got demoralized and scattered. So Arabs, Muslim army, they took control over the bridge and they blocked their access to the bridge, and this is how they eliminated the retreating army. So after the battle of Bowaib, now the whole of the southern Iraq that came under the Muslim control. So their victory over the Persian, it ended the fear of the Arab against, about the Persian army and their might. So they got some courage, determination after their victory in the battle of Bowaib. Okay, so that was about the second important battle. The first one was Namarek, second one was Jasser, and the third one was Bowaib. So whenever you are asked to write about Jasser, briefly write about Bowaib, or if you are writing about Bowaib, give a brief background of Jasser also. The next important battle was, and the most important battle which was fought against the Persians, was the battle of Qadsiya. कादसिया का अलग से 10 मार्क का क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, ठीक है, अलग से 10 मार्क का क्वेश्चन कादसिया का बनता है, दैट यू मस्ट प्रिपेयर, ठीक है. तो आप कादसिया के क्वेश्चन, जब भी कादसिया की बैटल के बारे में आपसे कोई सवाल आएगा, तो व्हाट यू हैव टू राइट, दैट यू हैव टू गिव अ ब्रीफ बैकग्राउंड, because it was a turning point in the Iraqi campaigns. It was fought in 636, 636 AD, and the Persians were planning to avenge their defeat in the Bowaib, and they started gathering and collecting their large army. Okay, they collected a large army, and they put together a huge army against the Arabs. So when this news reached Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu, he mobilized his forces and he appealed to the people, and this appeal was met with enthusiastic response. Okay, and so all those tribes who were living near or far from Medina, they sent their men. Okay, and a large army was gathered. Okay, we can understand the importance of this battle from the fact that Umar radhiyallahu anhu himself wanted to lead the Muslim army. He himself decided to lead. Okay, so some sources mention that Umar radhiyallahu anhu was accompanied by 70 of those companions who had participated in the battle of Badr. Okay, 70 Badr participants, 300 who had been there with the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, in the Pledge of Tree, and about 700 of the sons of notable companions and the tribal leaders were there with him. Fine. So since Khalid bin Walid and other important commanders, they were at the Syrian front. So when Umar radhiyallahu anhu was advised that he should not go along with the army and he should stay back, so he appointed Saad bin Abi Waqqas, because the other commanders like Khalid bin Walid and Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, they were occupied on the Syrian front. Okay, वो Syrian की side पे थे. So Saad bin Abi Waqqas, who was a veteran from Badr, and the Muslim army of approximately 30,000, okay, 30,000 in strength, they marched towards Persia, Qadsiya. Okay, and Hazrat Umar himself was in constant contact with the Muslim army, and he advised them to set their camps at Qadsiya. Okay, it was a small town near Kufa. Persians, they were of the strength of 60,000. 60,000 ज़्यादा बेहतर है हमने लिखना, कहीं कहीं पे ज़्यादा भी strength आती है, but you should mention that the Persians were 60,000, and this time they were led by their commander Rustam. Rustam himself came in the battlefield. So the Persian army of 60,000 men, and it also included an elephant corps, okay, and a large cavalry battalion. So Muslims, as their custom and tradition, they first sent their delegation, a delegation of 14 Muslims. Okay, they went to the Persian king, okay, to invite him, and so Sa'd radhiyallahu anhu, he sent a delegation of 14 Muslim elders to the Persian emperor Yazdgird, okay, to invite them to accept Islam or to pay jizya or to arbitrate for the battle. So instead, The arrogant emperor, he spoke about his refinement and the backwardness of Arab, their poverty. Okay, but Muslim delegation remained patient and courteous. Okay, so when the delegation was leaving, they, as an insult, they put a basket full of earth on their head as an insult for the Muslim delegation. But Muslim, they took a positive meaning from this, okay, and they said to be happy and to rejoice because the enemy has handed over their earth, their soil to us even before the battle. Okay, the enemy has handed over their soil, their earth to us even before the battle. So the standoff continued for 3 months initially with minor skirmishes, okay, but later on, finally, the battle started, and Rustam, the Persian commander, he had the channel blocked overnight, and his troops crossed over to attack the Muslim army. So Saad bin Abi Waqas, although he was sick, and he led the battle from his sick bed, and he sent forces from Muslim army, and Saad bin Abi Waqas employed successful strategies, and he made best use of his archers to overcome the elephant corps, and this is how he uh, uh, quickly took action against uh, the Persian army, and Muslims were victorious in this battle. Okay, so this battle on the third day, which was the final day, we can say that this battle lasted for 3 to 4 days. So on the third day, which and the final day of the battle, Rustam was caught and he was killed. Okay, he was killed while he was trying to swim to safety, and some sources mention that he was killed by Bilal bin Alqama, a Muslim soldier. Okay, so Persians were routed. Saad Radiallahu anhu chased them to Babel, okay, which was their and then to Madain, and Madain was their main town. It was their capital. Muslims, they crossed the river Tigris on the back of their horses, on the back of their animals, and Muslims, they captured Yazid's capital Madain. And when Persians saw the Muslim army crossing the river on the back of their horses, they started shouting that the giants had come, and they left the city empty. And Muslims, they captured it. Okay, they captured the White Palace, and Saad bin Abi Waqas, they offered their first Friday prayer in it, and the emperor and his family and the nobles had fled to Halwan with their treasures. And this is how that was all about the conquest, okay, the major conquest which happened there in the towards the Persia. So these royal treasures were collected, and they were sent to Medina along with 1/5 of the war booty, while rest was distributed among the troops. So afterwards, a peace was declared, and the remaining population came to hear and agree with the terms of jizya. The peace lasted for about 5 years, and afterwards, they broke their treaty and agreement with the Muslims. Okay, and finally, in 642, when the Persians, they broke their treaty with the Muslims, the Battle of Nehawan was fought against them, and it was the final battle, and it is also known as the battle, the victory of the victories and the conquest of the conquest. Okay, so this was one of the greatest success of the Muslim army against the Persians. So the victories in Iraq opened the way up for the expedition into the Persian mainland, okay, and further expansion towards the other areas. Okay, and you can mention that finally the last battle which was fought against them, it was the Battle of Nehawan. Okay, and this was led by another Muslim commander, Noman bin Muqarrin, with the 30,000 men. Umar radiallahu anhu ordered to conquer all the remaining provinces and all the remaining areas. Okay, invasion of the Persian provinces in 642, and by the next year Isfahan, Khorasan, Ray, Faras. Okay, and these areas were conquered, and they were included in the Muslim rule. Okay, so what you can finally describe at the end, okay, to end this answer and the war with the Persians, you can say that Umar radiallahu anhu consulted his advisors and finally took Hazrat Ali's advice on the strategy to be followed. Okay, Muslims, they reached Nahawan, and they were outnumbered, okay, to one of the Persian who had also blocked the way to their camps. So Muslims used the tactic of Khalid bin Walid. Okay, the tactic was the fake retreat, pretending to withdraw, okay, and to draw the enemy into their middle, into the open field. So Persians advanced, and whatever Muslims that they had expected, it happened. So Muslims, they advanced and killed and wounded many of their front ranks. Okay, and Muslims, They closed in on them and attacked, okay, furiously, and the Persians retreated, and their retreat was blocked by the okay. So since the Persians had made several obstacles, okay, for the Muslims, so that Muslims will not be able to enter into their area, these obstacles became a death trap for them, okay, and they were killed in large number. And this is how we can say that in this battle 30,000 Persians had been killed, and the victory at Nahawan was decisive. And as on hearing this, Hazrat Umar ordered the invasion of the Persian provinces, and I told you that these areas were conquered. You can identify some of these provinces like Isfahan, Khorasan, Ray, Faras, okay, and the outlying region of the Sindh has been conquered during this time. These were all the battles, major battles fought against the Persians. Okay, so the major battles fought against the Persians are Namarik. Namarik is, as such, is not that much important. It is just an introduction that how the expansion started. The main battles are Jasar. Jasar is also known as Bridge and Marwa. So Jasar, Buwaib, Qadsiya. Along with Qadsiya, you will also write about capture of Madain. And along with that, at the end, you will write about the Battle of Nahawan. So these are the main battles fought against the Persians. The next phase of the conquest, it was towards the Byzantines. Okay, so towards the conquest towards the Byzantines, we can mention that during the Caliphate of Hazrat Abu Bakr anhu, Muslim commanders, several Muslim commanders were there on the Syrian front. Abu Bakr had sent 4 commanders initially, and they were Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, Amr bin Alas, Yazid bin Abi Sufyan, and Shurahbil bin Hasana. Finally, Abu Bakr had also sent Khalid bin Walid, who was from Persia, and Khalid was also sent from Persia to Syria. So these commanders, they led successful campaigns there during Abu Bakr's Khilafat, and finally, at the time of Abu Bakr's death, Muslims, they had laid siege to Damascus. So Abu Ubaidah, Khalid bin Walid, they were occupied. They were there in the Syrian front during the Iraqi campaigns. Khalid organized the siege and capture the Damascus, and this city was known for its wealth and culture. Syrians, they were hoping for the reinforcement from the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, but the Muslims, and they were thinking that Muslims, their resolve would be broken because of the extreme climatic condition, okay, extreme winter. However, this did not happen, and instead Muslims led by Khalid bin Walid, okay, they made a daring act, okay, using a rope ladder. They scaled the walls, they jumped inside their area, and they started conquering. So the Syrians panicked and threw the gates open to escape. So you must know that at one entrance of Damascus, there was a force of Khalid bin Walid who had made a daring attempt to conquer Syria, or conquer Damascus. And on the other side, okay, there was Abu Ubaidah with his force. Abu Ubaidah was not aware about the attempt that has been made by Khalid bin Walid. The people of Damascus went to Abu Ubaidah and signed a peace agreement and surrendered. Okay, finally, okay, the Damascus was captured and conquered on the peace treaty that was signed by Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah with the people of Damascus. In the same way, okay, in the same way, the city of Hems or Emesa was also conquered. Okay, 636 Muslim laid siege to Homs, and which lasted long. And due to the extreme winter, they hoped to, okay, that the desert warriors will lift the siege, but they remained firm. And finally, they had made a peace treaty like the people of Damascus, and Hems also came under the Muslim rule. The main and the actual battle, the most important battle which was fought against the Byzantines, was the Battle of Yarmouk. Okay, you must know that there were 4 to 5 major commanders at the Syrian front, as I told you earlier. And Heraclius, he was aware about the distribution and the division of the Muslim army, and he wanted to take advantage of that because Muslim army was geographically divided into different regions. Okay, so he prepared a large army. He ordered to mobilize troops from all the corners of his empire, and in May 636 he had gathered a large force of 260,000, because when the reports on fall of Damascus and defeat at Fihl and Hems were given to Heraclius along with the reason behind Muslim success. So he was determined to recover Palestine. That was the Holy Land for the Christians and also all the for all the divine religions. So he issued orders to mobilize troops from all the corners of his empire. And learning of this, Khalid bin Walid began to group his forces along the river Yarmouk. Okay, it was a tributary of river Jordan. So Umar was in the contact with the commanders and he sent them message to advise and he sent encouragement to them. So Romans, they made an attempt to drive the Muslim army from Syria and they offered them huge sum of money if they will leave their city. So they offered them huge sum of money that if they will leave their country, their area. But Muslims, they in return they offered them three alternatives: Islam, jizya, or the war. You can further mention that Khalid had noticed the plan of the Heraclius and his army, and he asked Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah to gather and to pull back all the troops from the Palestine, from the northern and from the central Syria, and to concentrate the whole Muslim army at one place. So all the troops and the whole Muslim army of around 40,000, they gathered under the leadership of Abu Ubaidah, and later on he himself handed over the leadership to Khalid bin Walid. Abu Ubaidah divided the army into 38 regiments. You have to give these details in your answer, that he divided the army into 38 regiments. 18 regiments were put in the middle and 10 on the right and 10 on the left. On the middle he had appointed Abu Ubaidah himself was the commander. On 18 regiments, those who were in the middle, 18 regiments बीच में थी, उसके ऊपर अबू उबैदा बिन जर्रा कमांडर थे. 10 regiments of the Muslim army on the right, उनके ऊपर Shurahbil bin Hasana was the commander, and 10 regiments were on the left, and upon them Yazid bin Abi Sufyan was the commander, and the overall command was in the hands of Khalid bin Walid. So Muslims, they gave and offered them three options. They decided to fight. So Khalid रज़ी अल्लाह responded with reason and declined the Romans offer, जो उन्होंने offer की थी ना शुरू में, and he elaborated on the positive changes that Islam had brought about in the Arabs and invited the Romans to accept Islam or else to get protection by payment of jizya. But when he was met with a refusal, so he returned to prepare his army for the inevitable conflict. So the battle, which started and lasted for several days, the war strategies of the Muslim commanders paid off successfully and the Romans suffered heavy losses and defeat. Muslims also had to bear the loss of 3,000 lives besides those who were grievously wounded. You can mention that Khalid bin Walid lost his childhood friend Ikrama bin Abu Jahl in this battle, and in the same battle Abu Sufyan lost his second eye. He lost his second eye in this battle, and there were so many men and Muslim army, those who were grievously wounded, because they had a very heavy archers. So they were very much wounded in this battle also. So Battle of Yarmouk, however, proved to have lasting consequences, and permanently it altered the history of the southern Mediterranean region. Umar radiallahu, when he got the news of the success of the Muslims, he fell into a prayer of gratitude before Allah Almighty when he received the news of the success. On the other hand, Heraclius, he withdrew from Syria and moved his capital to Constantinople. And later on this area was also conquered afterwards. That was the major success. And along with that, ये भी आपको पता होना चाहिए कि whenever you write about the Battle of Yarmouk, add the fall of Jerusalem also. And Jerusalem was a major city of Palestine, and Muslims were successful and they took control over the many areas of the Syria. Here you can identify that Umar bin al-Ath has already besieged the city. And the people of Jerusalem were expecting that they will get reinforcement from the emperor, but when they got to know that the Abu Ubaidah, and they realized that Abu Ubaidah is also joining Umar bin al-As, so they agreed to surrender, but the condition was that the Caliph himself has to come in person. So the message was sent, and Umar radiallahu anhu decided to go to Jerusalem, and where he not only visited Masjid Aqsa but also the Christian churches. He was very much simple at the time. अगर इसका जेरूसलम का अलग से आएगा तो आपने उसको डिटेल में डिस्क्राइब करना है कि how much simple was Umar, that he hired he took a camel and a slave, okay, and they were traveling and they were riding it turn by turn, and the time came then Umar Radhiyallahu has to meet the rulers there in Jerusalem. So it was the turn of the slave to ride the camel, and Umar was on his foot. He had several patches on his dress, but he entered with, and he met with them with great simplicity. He was offered even to perform the prayers inside the church, but he refused, saying that this will set an example for the other Muslims to forcefully convert the church into mosque. Okay, and he refused, and later on he was led to the place where Prophet Dawood alayhi Islam used to perform his prayers, and where later on they built a mosque which is known as Masjid Umar. Afterwards, the major event is the conquest of Egypt. Okay, Hazrat Umar was initially not in favor of annexing the Egypt. Okay, and but Amr bin al-As made him realize the strategic importance of Egypt. So Umar radhiyallahu anhu gave permission. Okay, and because it was economically profitable province of the Roman Empire, and so Amr bin al-As persuaded and made him realize. Umar radhiyallahu anhu put him in charge of an expedition, and Amr bin al-As entered Egypt with 4,000 men, and later on Umar radhiyallahu anhu sent reinforcement under the command of Zubair radhiyallahu anhu also. Okay, so one after another these areas were conquered. You can identify their names like Fustat, Alexandria, and Alexandria was a port city, and it was the most important success of the Muslims, because Muslims, they faced a lot of difficulty in the conquest of Alexandria, because they were constantly receiving the help and support from the sea, from the Heraclius. But with the death of Heraclius, Muslims, they realized that there will be no more further help and support, so they intensified their attack. Okay, Muslims, they when they came to know about the emperor's death, so Muslims, they intensified the attacks, and after a battle, Alexandria was conquered, and Muslim became the master of Egypt. Okay, you have to give these details. Like commanders were Zubair bin Awam, and several other commanders were there. Fine. So the fall of Alexandria was the major success of the Muslims there at that time, and with that, ठीक है, हमारे पास इनकी सारी सक्सेस और जो कैंपेन्स है यहाँ पे ऐड हो जाती हैं. कुछ डिटेल्स और भी हैं इजिप्ट की, ठीक है, आप उसको अपने पास कहीं पे नोट भी कर लें, यहाँ पे नहीं लिखी हुई, ठीक है, आप उसको लिख सकते हैं कि कॉन्क्वेस्ट ऑफ इजिप्ट वाइड वाज द मेजर success of the Muslims at the time. So initially I told you that Umar was not in favor of the Muslims advancement towards Egypt. Okay, but later on, when Amr bin al-As persuaded and who realized the strategic importance of this region, Umar put him in charge of an expedition of 4,000 men. So the long drawn out defense and siege, okay, and its surrender 2 years after Jerusalem has convinced the Caliph to review his decision. Amr bin al-As approached the massive and well defended fort, okay, and it was at the base of the river Nile. So reinforcements were requested. Okay, Amr bin al-As requested for the reinforcement. Reinforcement arrived from Medina, and these reinforcements were led by 4 brilliant commanders. There was Zubair bin Awam, okay, there was Ubadah bin Samit, and there was Miqdad bin Umar, and Maslama, okay, bin Mukhallad. So Amr radhiyallahu anhu handed over the operation to Zubair, who captured the fort after a 7-month-long siege. Okay, what they did, they scaled the walls, they opened the gates for the Muslim army to enter, and this fort later on became the garrison town of Fustat. Okay, one of the garrison town which was built by Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu. It was in Egypt. It was in Fustat, the capital. Fustat is near the modern day capital Cairo. ठीक है, कायरो जो है, जो आजकल इजिप्ट का कैपिटल है, that is just beside Fustat. Alexandria was the major success. It was conquered in 635. So the governor of Fustat, who had surrendered to Amr, made his way to Alexandria as the Roman governor of the Egypt. And Alexandria was a well-established port city, okay, and it was over 1,000 years old, with a large population and many public buildings, famous library, and the historic lighthouse. It was well-defended city and not easy to conquer. And despite attack and a long siege, Muslims they had a little success. So Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu wrote a strongly worded letter to Amr bin al-As expressing his displeasure at the pace of the events. So he read out the Caliph's letter to his troops and exhorted them into action. So, led by Ubada ibn Samit, Zubair bin Awam, and Maslama ibn Mukhallad, the troops stormed and captured Alexandria. So, these were the major success and the major expansion of the Islamic Empire during his rule. Umar radiallahu anhu not only conquered the and expanded the Islamic Empire. The Islamic Empire expanded far and wide, but he also administered these areas very well. Okay, he is known for his administration, and his rule is considered as the golden era of the Islamic rule or of the rightly guided caliphs. So Umar radiallahu anhu is remembered for his administrative measures he put into place. Okay, several reforms were introduced. You can divide your answer into different paragraphs. You can talk about in one paragraph you can write in detail about the political reforms, okay, administrative reforms, and then you can write about the financial reforms and military reforms, okay, and several other reforms could be added in your answer, judicial reforms and other social reforms. So at least 5 to 6 paragraphs could be made in your answer. So first of all, you can start with the political, that his government was of a unitary form where the full and final authority was the caliph. Okay, there were two council, two houses of council, and which was Majlis Shura and Majlis Am. Okay, so Majlis Shura comprised of the senior and the eminent companions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Majlis Am, it comprised of the representation from different tribes and from all the different areas. Okay, so it was a democratic system of government, and since Holy Prophet also used to decide matters of vital importance by seeking the counsel of his companions. So Umar radiallahu anhu also adopted and introduced the same democratic system, setting up two such councils. One of these was General Assembly, which was Majlis Am, which and it has to announce, making a general announcement, and whereby only matters of special national importance were discussed. The other was the special council, which was Majlis Khas, and which was meant for the conduct of the daily business. In order to administer the Islamic Empire well, he had distributed the empire into different provinces and appointed governors over them. Okay, governors and tax collectors and judges were appointed. These appointments were made on their performance, their capability, okay, and they were on merit. There was strict check and balance on these people. Okay, there were proper rules and regulations, proper appointment letters, and they had to declare their assets before taking the charge of the office, so that by the end of their service it could be checked that whether there was any corruption or any case, okay, and they had amassed wealth from illegal means. So there was strict check and balance, and every year on the occasion of Hajj, all the governors had to assemble in Makkah, and Umar radiallahu anhu would listen to the complaints of people directly. He would listen, he would solve these matters then and there. Such was the accountability of the people who were having such these posts. Okay, so his reforms included the creation of provinces for more effective government of the growing Islamic territories, and the appointment of capable officials with strict instructions on the good governance, and they were paid good salaries to eliminate corruption. Okay, then you can further talk about the military reforms that were introduced by Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu. Okay, there it was made a proper state department. Before Umar radiallahu anhu, there was no regular army. Okay, and people were asked to volunteer themselves, okay, as or whenever their services were required. Umar radiallahu anhu realized and felt the importance of proper regular army. So he made it a state department and fixed salaries for them. Their names were listed, and there were two categories: those who formed the regular army and those who lived in their homes, and but they were called whenever they were needed. Okay, and cantonments were built, garrison towns were built, established, and two were built in Iraq. They were known as Kufa and Basra, and one was in Egypt, which was Fustat. Okay, there were two major divisions of the army: infantry and the cavalry. Okay, there was regular training. Okay, the basic requirement and the basic skills were that they were able to run bare feet and expert in horse riding, archery, swimming. These were the basic skills which were required for the army. Okay, so then you can talk about the judicial or first of all financial reforms. So he has also introduced a department which was known as Baitul Mal. Baitul Mal was there already, but Umar al made it properly organized. Okay, so there were registers. Registers were known as Diwan. He arranged to have drawn up all those who were entitled of the state pension, okay, for their part in the expansion of Islam. This wise move meant that Muslim soldiers would not seek the income by settling in the lands they conquered, but they remained together in garrison towns, and they continue to be available for further service to Islam. Okay, so one of the financial reform was that he uh, stopped that that the conquered land would not be distributed amongst the conquerors, but that will be considered the state property, and people providing their services in the army would be given their salaries. Okay, and proper check and balance was there. Okay, there was Baitul Mal in every provinces. After meeting their expenses, they sent the surplus money to the capital. There was a central Baitul Mal in Medina, and the central Baitul Mal, after meeting their expenses, the surplus money was distributed amongst the poor and the needy. Since Islamic Empire was a welfare empire and it worked for the welfare of the welfare of the people living in the empire, so not only the Muslims were getting the benefit from the public treasury, even the non-Muslims, they were having share from the from Baitul Mal. Once there is an example that once Hazrat Umar Radhiyallahu anhu saw a Christian old man begging. He not only exempted him from jizya, but he also fixed some amount for him from Baitul Mal. Okay, and besides this, there were several judicial reforms introduced by him also. The judiciary was made completely independent, and he declared it as sovereign organ and without having any pressure or any influence of any other post. So he appointed judges, and these judges were of great knowledge and experience of the Islamic fiqh and Islamic laws. And Umar anhu, he laid the foundation of the office of Qazi and the judge. Okay, and these judges were appointed on high salaries, and they were from the noble families. Okay, and those who were well versed in fiqh and had a keen sense of justice. So he disliked those judges who were giving some favor to anyone. Okay, once he had a dispute, and when the judge showed some respect to him, and so Umar got annoyed. He showed his displeasure, and when he appeared in the court of Zaid bin Sabit on some matter, so he himself acted as a judge in Medina, but later on when he realized that it will be difficult for him to handle two responsibilities, so he resigned and he appointed Zaid bin Sabit as a judge in Medina. Fine. So these reforms were introduced, and he wanted to eliminate such type of bribery and corruption from the justice, from such type of judicial system. He has also introduced several social reforms, and amongst the social reforms, the spread of the teaching of the Holy Quran. Okay, and he appointed qualified teachers who were paid salaries from the state treasury, and he made it compulsory for all the people and all the Bedouin tribes to acquire knowledge of the Quran. Soldiers were also directed to learn the Quran in their free time, leisure time. Okay, so many people and many soldiers, they learned Quran by heart, and he was the one who had a credit that he started the Islamic calendar, the Hijri calendar, from the year of the migration of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, from Makkah to Medina, and from the first of Muharram of that year. And Umar Raziallahu anhu established a society which was based on the verse of the Quran that the most honorable among you is the one who is most God fearing. Okay, so this is how we can say that Muslim government today have an excellent example in the Umar's administration. Okay, he introduced several reforms. Several new departments were introduced by Hazrat Umar Raziallahu anhu, like police department, and you can mention postal department, and several other new departments and or were introduced by him. So this is how we can say that Umar's time period is considered a remarkable and a role model for the Muslim leaders today. Umar Raziallahu anhu ruled for about 10.5 years, and Islamic empire expanded far and wide. And we know that after the Battle of Nahawan, several captives uh, were brought to Medina and they were distributed. Okay, so amongst those captives was a Persian slave, and his name was Abu Lulu Feroz. His name was Feroz, and he was known by the title Abu Lulu. We know that Hazrat Umar's quick temper. Okay, we know about him. That there is a story that when he met a Muslim commander in the Palestine and saw that they were dressed in silks, he expressed great annoyance. Okay, and one of the event that which caused his death, because he was assassinated by Abu Lulu, a slave. Okay, and he came to Umar anhu and appealed to be relieved from paying tax. Okay, he was paying jizya and he was paying 2 dirhams per day to his master Mughira bin Shoba. So he wanted reduction in the he wanted that his tax would be reduced, but Umar anhu did not consider it too much for him. Okay, and since he was having so many expertise, and he rejected the demand, okay, of the slave, and because of which he threatened him and he killed him while Umar anhu was leading the morning prayer. He was leading the congregational prayer, okay, Fajr prayer there in Masjid Nabwi. So he was attacked in the last days of the month of Zilhajj 23 AH, and he died on the 1st of Muharram 24 AH. Okay, you can mention that while Umar anhu was leading the prayer, he was attacked by Feroz. Okay, and he stabbed him 6 times in his stomach with a poisonous dagger, and which caused his death. Okay, so his martyrdom is a source of lesson for the Muslim, and a lot of lessons could be learned. It shows his determination and firmness. It showed his justice, that Umar did not accept the unjust demand of a slave. Okay, it showed his trust in God, and it showed his love with the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also, and his sincerity with his religion, that he himself was leading the congregational prayers and he was performing all his responsibilities himself. Okay, and his love and desire to be buried beside the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Okay, and at the time he was approximately 63 years old. Okay, maybe a little bit younger or older. So as he had willed that Umar anhu was to be buried in Medina next to the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, and Abu Bakr anhu, he took permission from Aisha anha, the Prophet's wife, although she had reserved that place for herself, but she resigned in favor, and she accepted Umar's request. Umar anhu had advised his son to seek permission again after his death. Okay, Umar survived for few days, and during that time he made a panel of 6 people to elect his successor and to nominate, okay, to elect someone from themselves. So his great concern about the welfare of the Muslim Ummah and about their leader. So that's all about Umar's Khilafat, and जो भी इस तरह का कोई सवाल आएगा आपके पास, तो आपने उसको प्रॉपर वे में अपनी इंफॉर्मेशन उसी में से इसके अकॉर्डिंग लिखनी होगी. ठीक है, ऑल द बेस्ट फॉर योर एग्ज़ाम. टेक केयर. अल्लाह हाफिज़.